Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 7 of the Growth and Gratitude podcast. Let's start with gratitude. So please start thinking of 3 things that you're grateful for, and I will share 3 things that I'm grateful for that are relevant to the topic today. So number 1, I am so grateful for the career that I had, the 28-year career as a lecturer at Cal State University Northridge, teaching public speaking, advanced public speaking, intercultural communication, interpersonal communication, organizational communication, and some others, but those were the core courses that I taught. I am so grateful for that teaching career that I am now retired from and now full-time a coach and trainer. I am also so grateful for all the incredible public speaking experiences that I've had in my life, even though some of them were terrifying and difficult and created a lot of imposter syndrome. I'm grateful for every single one of them and how they helped me grow. I am also incredibly grateful to the Cal State University TEDx team for giving me the opportunity to give a TEDx talk, which was on public speaking. And that was one of the best experiences of my career and of my life. So I'm incredibly grateful for those 3 things. Please take a moment, pause this recording, the video or the audio, whatever it is that you are listening to or watching, and please say out loud 3 things that you are grateful for right now. The topic for today is how to deliver a great presentation. So I have a lot of experience with this topic, but believe it or not, for a lot of my life, up until about halfway through college, I was terrified of public speaking. And I have a lot of memories of having it be a very traumatizing experience. So if you're in that space, I get it, I understand, and I overcame that, and I want to help you with that. Now, I mentioned earlier that I gave a TEDx talk on public speaking. That was really about why it's so important to overcome the fear of public speaking and embrace public speaking opportunities, and how to overcome that fear of public speaking. So I'm not going to repeat my TED Talk. I hope that you will watch it. Of course, the link will be here, easy for you to access. And I hope that you'll watch that talk, because I shared the best of what I've got on that subject around public speaking and presentations. What I want to do today on the topic of delivering powerful presentations is give you much more of the nuts and bolts of how to be a great presenter, the core skills that are required. And how do I know so much about this? As I said, I taught it for 28 years at a university. I taught beginning and advanced public speaking. I've coached many, many people on their public speaking skills through anxiety or just through preparing and practicing and getting better at a big talk, or getting better at the skills they needed for a big talk or a small talk or presenting in a meeting. And by the way, all of this will apply to your talks that you're giving, informal talks, big talks, virtual or in person. I'm going to make it all relevant to all potential contexts and scenarios. So I've given my own TEDx talk. I've done tons of public speaking in my career as a trainer and a coach and as a lecturer. Now, a word on that question of fear. Even though I won't redo the TED Talk, it is normal to be nervous about public speaking. I still get nervous in new situations, and most of my clients do as well. And even in familiar situations, that's okay. A little anxiety, a little nervousness is okay. But the fear of public speaking, that true deep fear that terrifies us and makes us shy away from it, even though we know it's so important for our career and for our voice to be able to speak out in the world and to be able to deliver a presentation on something that we feel passionate about, whether it's in our community, in our work, at school, in our lives, at a wedding, a toast at a wedding, whatever it might be. We want to build that skill so that we can have the voice we want to have and be successful in our lives and be able to be proud of ourselves. So the fear that people feel around what's at stake is what psychologists actually label an irrational fear, meaning we feel like we're going to die or people are going to be laughing at us right in front of us. And these things don't happen. We feel like we're going to forget everything or we're going to faint. These things don't happen. It's an irrational fear. The worst, truthfully, is that everyone will forget you and forget everything that you said. That's not great either, but it doesn't require the degree of fear that we often feel. So remind yourself of that. Watch the TED Talk on that. A lot of people have reported that it was helpful. It has over 300,000 views, even though I barely did anything to promote it. I just wanted to put it out in the world to share with people. So the core skills of being a powerful presenter, giving a great talk, giving a great speech, regardless of who the audience is or how big the audience is or whether they're over Zoom, Google Meet, or another platform, or they are in person standing in front of an audience. It comes down to three things, and it's an acronym, COD. If you like fish, if you like cod, you can think of the fish as a way of remembering. Or if you're a business owner and you want cash on delivery, you can think of COD as cash on delivery. But for public speaking, for me, what it stands for is content, organization, and delivery. And those are the three areas of skill as a speaker that you will need to master if you want to be a great presenter. And I believe that you want to be. And if you don't want to be, think about it. Really think about how it could help you in so many aspects of your life, certainly in your career. Almost everybody I've ever coached in some way needed to present, either to train people at work or to deliver a report on a project that they were working on. It comes up in life, and it's an important skill for us to have and to master. So I'm going to give you a little bit of what I've got and what I taught for all those years and what I still teach and train and coach people on: content, organization, and delivery. That's the easy acronym for you to remember it. So content, number one, adapt to your audience. It should never be the same talk twice. So you're not going to, even if you're speaking about the same topic, you're going to adapt it in a very different way if you're speaking to middle school students and seniors on the same topic. When I graduated with my master's degree in communication studies, after 2 years of teaching the basic course during my grad program, the basic public speaking course, which was really trial by fire because I was only 22. I taught it from 22 to 24 over 30 years ago. And I got out of grad school and I really wanted to go outside of academia and get some kind of experience with my teaching skills. So I took a position with a nonprofit organization called Consumer Credit Counseling. And my job was to go out into the community and deliver all of these talks on financial responsibility, how to get out of debt, how to live within a budget, how to plan for your future financially. I knew nothing about these topics. In fact, I was terrible at managing my own finances. But when they hired me, what they said is that we just need somebody who's a good presenter. We're going to teach you all the financial content, which was an interesting experience in itself. But what the job did for me was that it taught me to take the same basic core information on a few basic topics: budgeting, getting out of credit card debt, and financial planning and investing. It wasn't a lot of information, but I had to adapt it for every different group that I spoke to. So my job required that in the morning, I might be speaking at a homeless shelter to women who were trying to get back on their feet and talk to them about credit card debt and talk to them about credit repayment plans and negotiating with creditors and how to start with a budget again and how to get back on their feet, basically. And that was so rewarding. And then maybe later in the day, I was speaking to, as I said, middle school students or elementary school students or college students about also how to live on a budget and how to avoid credit card debt, that sort of thing. And then another day, I might be speaking to professionals at their place of work for a brown bag lunch kind of a workshop. And they had much more interest in how to invest their money and how to plan for retirement and how to figure out how to make the most of the money that they had. And they didn't necessarily have a lot of debt. Some of them did, but you get my point. The point is, it was all about adapting for the audience. What's relevant? What's helpful? What's most interesting? What stories will resonate the most? What can they relate to? What can you share about yourself? That's also an important part of content, is be vulnerable, be honest about your own experiences. I've shared with you that I still get nervous about public speaking. And I always share with my audiences my flaws as well as the areas where I feel I've done well. So be willing to develop content that is most useful, most helpful, make it engaging, make it interesting, keep it brief as much as possible, keep it short and sweet to the point, and make sure that you are always adapting for your particular audience. Now, point 2 is organization. Organization. All of the years that I taught public speaking, the hardest speeches to watch were not, believe it or not, the speeches that I disagreed with or the speeches that had flawed content, though those could be tough, or the speeches that had misinformation. Really, what was really the most difficult for most of us, I think, in the room was speeches that were completely disorganized, speeches that were hard to follow, speeches that didn't have a clear thesis and through line, and we didn't know what we were supposed to take away, speeches, presentations that or reports that did not have clear key main points that we understood that we were supposed to walk away with. So organization is key. And I am a believer in the basic fundamental outline format that was in every public speaking textbook I ever used, that is generally in some way, shape, or form recommended, even in the popular culture books out there and articles and podcasts on public speaking skills. Here it is, super basic, just a review probably for most of you. Start with an attention grabber, a question, a joke, a story, something simple, just a little interesting fact or statistic. It can be one sentence, but something that draws your audience in. Think about sharing an interesting story about something that you just experienced and how much more engaging that is versus saying, okay, today I'm here to talk about our spreadsheet of financial quarterly reports. That comes second. Okay, so start with an attention grabber first. Second, state your topic. Yes, state your topic clearly. Don't make it creative and confusing. Just say, this is what we're here to talk about. I did this with you. We're here to talk about presentation skills. Third, the idea is to state your credibility. What makes you an expert on the topic? So I shared with you, I was a public speaking lecturer for 28 years. I have a TEDx talk. I've coached and trained many people on their public speaking skills. So hopefully that buys me a little bit of credibility so that you think that I sort of know what I'm talking about. So you want to do that with your audience. And the fourth part of the introduction is to preview your main points. What are the 3 key points? 3 is ideal. If it's 2, if it's 4, and you really feel that works better, that's your judgment call. But state what those points will be very, very briefly. Don't get into them. So remember, I said we are going to talk about content, organization, and delivery. Keep your organization tight. Don't wing it. I know you want to be dynamic and off the cuff and authentic. We'll talk about that when we get to delivery, and I am all for that. But you can do that with your outline prepared. So the next part of your outline after you do your introduction is just going to be your 3 key points, supporting points underneath that. In your conclusion, make sure that you start to sum up and give people a signal that you're coming to a close. So in summary, the key takeaway is that sort of thing. Sum up what your key points are. So now you understand how to master content, organization, and delivery as a speaker, and then end with something similar to an attention grabber, a quote, a story, a fact, a statistic, something of that nature. Now, Brian Tracy, who wrote one of my favorite books on this subject, a little older, but great fundamentals, Speak to Win, said 90% of your success as a speaker will be determined by how well you plan your speech. Planning, organizing, having an outline, at least have bullet points, at least think about what is the key takeaway and what are the core supporting points for that takeaway. One other thing on organization, internal summaries. So I'll do one right now. So now you know about content, you know about organization. We're getting ready to move into the fun part, the lively part, the part that really connects you with the human beings in the room or across the virtual world, your delivery. So that was an internal summary where you say, here's where we've been, here is where we are going. So delivery, oh my goodness, this is so important. This is where you want to practice. This is where you don't want to read from your outline. Yes, have an outline, have your bullet points. Don't write it out word for word so that your delivery will be natural and authentic and dynamic and you'll engage with the audience. But have that outline, practice with it so that your delivery will flow in the moment, so that you're so familiar with what you're talking about that your delivery can be so natural. You can focus on your eye contact, your volume, your vocal variety. Don't speak in a monotone. If you tend to speak in a monotone, you are sure to put everyone who you're speaking to across your virtual meeting or in person to sleep. Don't be monotone. Have excitement and energy and passion. You want to be real, be yourself, but also bring a little more energy than you would normally bring to an everyday conversation. This is one of the biggest things that people really have a hard time kind of really integrating about public speaking, which is that you just need to be yourself. You do not need to be anyone else. You should not be formal. Now, there's a difference. People are like, wait, I should just be myself and talk the way I normally do. No, that's not necessarily what I'm saying. What I'm saying is be your most polished self, your most articulate self. Make sure that your subject is well researched and that you know what you're talking about, and be polished. But that does not equate to formality, being formal. People want you to be real with them in this world, especially over virtual meetings. Can we just be real and natural? Look at how I'm still gesturing. I'm still trying to make eye contact with you into the camera. I'm trying to bring energy, even though I'm sitting here all by myself in a room in front of the camera with my microphone in front of me. I am trying to bring a dynamic delivery to this talk with you. So that's what I'm talking about. Eye contact, volume, vocal variety, natural gesturing. Don't be stiff and still and look like a statue. Bring energy, bring passion for whatever it is that you're talking about. And I know it's not always easy. Believe me, the day of my TEDx talk, I hadn't slept a wink. I was sleep deprived. I was terrified. I was second guessing. Why did I agree to do this? I can't, if I totally flop, there's nothing I can do. TED owns your talk if you give a TEDx talk. And if it's a disaster, they're still going to put it on the internet and everyone will potentially see it. So I was terrified that morning, and I still did what I could to be in a positive place, get my energy up and say, I have something to share and it's of value, and everybody might not love it. That's okay. But some people will get value out of it. So plan for a dynamic delivery and practice that dynamic delivery. People are short on time and energy, and attention spans are shrinking. Nobody has time to watch you give a mediocre talk or to watch you read from a piece of paper, to read from a manuscript. What people say about that is you could have just given me the document to read. The job of a speaker is to bring whatever the information is to life, to bring engaging visual elements to it, to bring storytelling to it. And that's a big part of delivery too. It's a part of content organization and delivery, really, is storytelling. Tell your stories. And I cannot emphasize that enough. There is so much research that shows that telling a story has a much more dramatic and lasting impact than just sharing data and information. So there's research that says that when an audience is listening to the speaker tell a story, that all parts of their brain light up and are engaged in their emotional centers in their brain. When you're just sharing data and statistics and information and lists of things, only the verbal centers of the brain are activated. And this is from Talk Like TED by Carmine Gallo. He goes into a lot more depth about that. And I encourage you to take a look at that book, which is great. So tell those stories and bring life to them in your delivery. I understand that we all have hard days. And believe me, in my 28 years of teaching, there were days where I was going through a lot and I didn't feel like I had the energy, but I also didn't want to give in to that and bring my low energy and my lack of enthusiasm to a group of people who didn't have anything to do with that. So I figured out a way to summon up the energy and the ability to teach what I needed to teach, even if I had to be authentic and tell them that I was going through something, to still share what I had to share with as much energy and enthusiasm as I could. So one more thing I want to say on delivery, and this is a widely debated statistic. You can disagree with it, but in my field, in communication studies, there was a professor named Merabian, and he studied the degree to which different aspects of our presentation when we're speaking or communicating in any kind of a setting impact how we're perceived by the listener or listeners. And what he said was that the impression that we create comes from our body language, our voice, and our message, our words. And he actually said that 55% of the impression we create comes from our body language. How are we carrying ourselves? How are we moving? Is it expressing nervousness or confidence? Is it expressing honesty and authenticity, or that we have something to hide? 38% was on our voice, our vocal tone, the tone of voice. You know, if I say to you, I'm not nervous about this speech, Of course, my voice is saying I'm nervous. The words don't matter so much. And only 7% was attributed to the actual words, very little. Now, the exception to this, of course, is when the words are unexpected, surprising, if they're shocking words, then people are more likely to remember them. But most of the time, they're not. Most of the time, it's what people are expecting. So remember that while we obsess over the words that we're going to speak in a meeting or a presentation, so much of the impression we're creating is through those other channels, through our voice, through our tone of voice, our volume. Are we speaking at a commanding volume, or are we speaking really softly and coming across as really insecure? Are we speaking too quickly and rushing and racing and seeming like we just want to get it over with as quickly as we can? Or do we have a pace that is easy to follow, that's a lively pace, but isn't rushing, and that people can easily digest what we're saying, that includes pauses? Keep in mind that so much of what people will be left with, were you nervous? Were you confident? Were you likable? Were you genuine? Were you intelligent? Will come from your body language and your tone of voice. And that is why it's so important to practice your delivery and get comfortable with delivering your talk, even if you are nervous. And everything that I've shared applies through the medium of virtual communication, whether it's a one-on-one meeting with one other person. If that's the case, though, you want to also observe turn taking. You're not doing all the talking, and most people find conversations most enjoyable when there's a relatively similar amount of talk time. So if you're doing all the talking in a one-on-one, the other person is probably not enjoying it as much as you are. So it's important to share the talk time. But if you are speaking to a group, really important to be aware that your delivery is going to impact so much of what they're left with. And they will not likely remember a lot of what you said, sadly. So follow up with your information and documents. Have your 3 key points that you repeat, that you really reinforce: content, organization, delivery, powerful presentation. So I'm being a little bit repetitive because the research actually says that 48 hours after hearing any message, people will likely remember at best 25% of it. So it is okay to repeat your key points, and that we are supposed to preview them in the beginning and review them briefly at the end. And so to do that, in summary, make sure your content is interesting, engaging, relevant, helpful, and always adapted for the audience, and brief, as short as you can share, as in as short a time as you can possibly share your key points. Do that. Your organization is tight. You've got an outline, you've planned, you've practiced so that you're familiar with your points, and you can still have a dynamic delivery, but you're not winging it. You want to seem like you're winging it, but not really be winging it. And then for delivery, make sure that you practice, that you're engaging, that you're dynamic, that you're bringing, even if you don't have real energy, you can summon that energy so that you do not take up people's time with a talk that's boring, that's low energy, that you don't really care about. That should not be happening out in the world. If we're speaking to people about a topic, we should care about it enough that we can bring, it doesn't have to be our most favorite topic, but we should care about it and have developed the content of it in a way where we can bring some energy and enthusiasm to it and care about it, so that our delivery is engaging with that eye contact, the volume, the voice, the movement. Avoid body postures that make you look like you're closed off. And that's for when you're a listener as well. And that's virtual communication or impersonal communication. You probably already know a lot of the basics that I haven't covered. If you don't, check in with me and I'll be happy to share them with you. But I think that I gave you some good beginning starter pointers for how to give a great presentation. Work on those with your content, organization, delivery. And the last thing I want to share with you is just a quick story about my own experience. I've had countless public speaking experiences. One of the best ones I've ever had is where my client asked me to share the story of my daughter coming out to me. And she was a friend of mine, as well as a colleague who had a very large team that she was running for a Fortune 500 company. She asked me to come give a talk about communication skills, but she asked me to share this story because it was so poignant for her when I shared it with her, because I so regretted the way I reacted initially when my daughter came out to me. If you want to hear that story, you can follow us at Transgender School. We have a podcast and we've done many courses and talks and a lot of education around that. But the story here is that I started my talk for an audience of hundreds at a big group summit for this group. And I started by asking the question, how many of you have a moment that you can look back on where you said something that you would now give anything that you possibly could to take back? Every single person raised their hand, and I waited a long time and I paused. And then I said, let me tell you about mine. It was when my daughter came out to me. And I went on to tell that story. Many people came up to me after and said that story made me cry. I could relate. You taught me something that I will always remember. And I have young kids, so if I ever go through something like this, I'll probably respond differently than I would have before your talk. So sometimes sharing your most vulnerable, regretful, weakest moments can be the most powerful presenting moments. And it doesn't have to be if it's just some technical report, but you can find a way to bring your true self, your authentic self to it and connect on a deep human level, no matter what the topic is. I know that because I've experienced it myself as a speaker and as an audience member. So I hope this was helpful to you. If you want more, check in with me. I do lots of coaching. We have workshops, and on our YouTube page, we have videos on public speaking skills. There's so much more to talk about. I hope you'll check out my TEDx talk, which I will make sure to put the link into the show notes for. And please live in gratitude. Think about what you're grateful for. I know there's a lot going on in the world, but we can always focus on something to be grateful for. And I hope that you go out there in the world and share your gifts with others through public speaking. Thanks.